to cover up his horns.
Before I turned around, that girl was gone. All I can say is, bartender, pour me something strong. Here's to the past, they can kiss my glass. I hope she's happy with him. Here's to the girl who wrecked my world, that angel who did me in. Oh, hi there, everyone. Hi, GenderqueerChat. It's Jo here, singing some country music, because I'm a dork. Okay, this week's topic, it's a good one. I have to kind of get my bearings here. In the close relationships in your life, with your friends, family, partner, etc., do these people understand your gender identity? Okay, I'm going to do it a chunk at a time, that first part. I don't have a lot of close relationships in my life. I guess my sister and my mother. I don't have very many close friends, and the friends that I do consider to be my closest do not understand my gender, no. My gender identity. It doesn't often come up much because I think there are so many other parts to my personality. I mean, when I connect with someone, when we connect, it's on the other level. But I think whenever the gender identity thing comes up, it usually raises an eyebrow, even with my mother and sister, and they get me more than anybody. And you've met my sister and mom in previous videos. Like, they're here and they hear me talk like this all the time, and they often think I'm kind of just off my on a kick of some kind. They often think I'm on a kick, and they're often right, but not in this case. But if not, do you feel that you are less close with them than you could be? Absolutely. I have problems with intimacy. People don't understand me. If you don't feel understood, you can't really be close to someone. How does their perception of you impact your relationship? Well, I guess that's mostly I own that problem, because their perception of me is how I perceive their perception of me, right? How they often see me, a lot of people in my life accept me pretty unconditionally. The fact that they don't get my gender identity doesn't mean they don't accept it. They still accept me for who I am. The fact that it bothers me that they don't get my gender identity is my problem, not their problem. And I can attempt to clarify it at times, and I do, but because it's not always in the conversation. I'm just thinking in particular of my friend Doris, for example. We have a lot in common and so much not in common. I think Ricky was mentioning this too with a friend. Like politically and just socially, we couldn't be more different. About a year ago, I found out that that Doris is a like card-carrying, Harper-loving conservative in Canada, and that's just like being a Bush-loving Republican in my view. And I didn't even know what to say, and I didn't even know what to do. And I just have to accept that about her, the way I guess she accepts things about me. It's hard, but it is what it is. It definitely made me feel less close, that's for sure. I would assume when people find out about my gender issues, they might feel less close to me, especially if they're trying to get... A lot of my female friends kind of try to get me on a female-to-female level because I'm not like other girls. A lot of my friends are also not like other girls, but they don't have gender identity issues the way I do. They just happen to be either less feminine or less involved in the patriarchy or less not binary oriented. A lot of my friends are very binary oriented. But you know, I have a lot of friends who are engineers or scientists and stuff like that in tech, and women like us tend to be a little bit different. We march to the beat of a different drummer than like mainstream female behavior. And so because they think I'm also a woman in tech, that I get them and that they get me. But they're usually married with their husband's last names. Like right there, I don't get you, and you're never going to get me, and so forth. So, you know, it does drive a wedge. It certainly does. And then some of my other friends, I guess there were some friends that I used to consider to be close friends, but we disagreed. I've mentioned this in previous videos. I have a hard time keeping friends. I tend to really find a wedge, and just there seems to always be something with me that makes me unable to maintain a friendship. And a lot of times it's because they're behaving in binary ways. A lot of times I'm just thinking of one other friend where she seems to be slightly autistic. I want to say like Asperger's. And several of my other friends suffer from depression, where there's just a disconnect, where we can't connect on certain levels because of various disabilities that they might have, or various Like when somebody's depressed, I can't cope with that at all. And I tend to run screaming. And yes, that makes me a bad friend. And yes, that drives a wedge into our friendship, for example. Also the fact that I don't need a man and don't want a man. I think a lot of women just don't understand that. They just think I'm deluded or I'm frigid or some kind of whack spinster living on a different planet. And that ties into gender identity for sure. Can you really be close with someone who does not really understand you? Or are these relationships fairly superficial? No, I don't think you can be close with someone who doesn't understand you. And I'm just trying to think of, it's not gender related, but there was a period in my life about 4 years ago. So when I was a kid, I was an air cadet and like baby military, I guess, for like 14-year-olds. And we marched around and we, you know, did military drills and stuff like that. And I loved it. It really, really, really was a time in my life where maybe it was the uniform, seriously. Like I think because we were all in military uniform, you were all one. Like the boys were treated the exact same ways as the girls. Everyone called me by my last name, which I love. I don't like, you know, gender differentiations, Miss so-and-so or whatever. And anyway, that experience in my life was priceless. So flash forward many years, we had a reunion that kind of sparked from a picture that I posted on Facebook. And years later, I was at this reunion and I had reconnected with some friends from Air Cadets. And we were at a bonfire. This was actually, oh, Eli's going to knock the guitar down. This was actually not the reunion because the reunion was amazing. But this was like some weeks later, my friend Steve had a bonfire out at his house. Hi, Eli. You want to say hi? Look who's in the land of the living. He's not great, but he's not bad either. Don't sneeze. Oh, he sneezes. He's got a respiratory problem. Yeah, we were at the bonfire, and a whole whack of us decided to go skinny dipping. And I think it was like 2 other women and 2 other guys. Maybe there were 3 guys. I can't even remember. But we all whipped off our clothes and got it. It was the most hilarious experience of my life. I had and I'm a bit of a nudist anyway, but none of us had any problem whatsoever being naked in front of each other. We were all kind of in various states of chunkiness or imperfection or like, you know, I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 this summer and some of my friends are in their 40s. And, you know, we didn't give a shit about anything other than the fact that we all connected like nothing I'd ever experienced before. When I read my blog entry from that day. If I can find it, I will link to it below my blog entry, but I was in tears afterwards from the connection that I had just made with these people, feeling like I was understood, because you gotta remember, I have hairy pits and this is kind of a thing in my life. You don't just jump in a pool looking the way I do, you know, with people who aren't gonna accept you for who you are and get you. And it was one of the greatest nights of my life. It really was. And I'm still in touch with some of those people. We're not particularly close, and they certainly don't get my gender issues, but nor do I think it really matters, because I think the level that we connect on is something different. And it's, I'm not just my gender. I mean, that's the thing too. I know Ricky said this in previous video. I'm always quoting Ricky, but I love Ricky, so that's that. But Ricky said something in a previous video, and I know I echoed it. Gender is what I'm not. Gender is not, I don't want to fixate on it. So Eli's right here, he's gonna knock the camera over. Because gender is what I'm not, I don't feel the need for it to be central in my friendships and central in who I am. I really don't particularly want to be friends with people who are like horrifically binary oriented, because we're just not gonna be on the same page. But I think most people in my little worldview are pretty okay with who I am, and I'm pretty okay with who they are, even though, you know, one of my dearest friends took her husband's last name. I guess even though my mother is a raving Catholic, you know, even though, you know, there's things my sister and I disagree on. There's always going to be huge divides between things, and that doesn't mean we don't get each other. Just last week I was at work and I was talking to this conservative Christian guy at work, and his father was a preacher, and I remember saying to him something like, did your parents agree politically and religiously and everything? He said, oh yeah. And I said, so there was never any argument in your family, in your home growing up? And I don't mean arguing, I just mean debate, like disagreements about things. And he said, no. And I said, oh, see, because I grew up in a house where my parents voted for different parties. And it was totally understood that you are you and you get to vote for who you want and the other person gets to vote for who they want, and there's nothing wrong with that. And because I was raised that way, I'm pretty, you know, I guess I'm very grateful that I was raised that way, because it taught me some acceptance. I don't tend towards being an accepting person. I tend towards being a judgmental person, which is another offshoot of the whole Catholicism. But I'm better than I used to be, and I think the blessing is that I do accept different political opinions, for sure. And that transcends, because politics is often personal, right? That does transcend into, you know, views on sexuality and stuff like that, and views on gender. And, you know, you don't need to necessarily understand everything about me to get the gist of me. But do I feel close relationships or intimate? No, I don't have a lot of friends like that. I don't, and the one friend that I had that I was like particularly close to a couple years ago, we had a falling out. And that happens from time to time in my life. And I own that problem. I don't know that, because it's happened so many times repeatedly, it's clearly I'm the common denominator. So I'm working on that. And I think I can only be who I am, and I can only work with what I was given. So I just do the best I can with what I have, I guess is the way to say it. Okay. Good. Okay, I think we're done. Have a good week, you guys. Bye-bye.